Good morning, everybody. Today is March 22nd. This is the May 22nd. I got the first two letters. I'm off to a great start. 2 letters and 2 dates. 3 wrong. I'm 3 for 3. 3 out of 6. 3 and 3. This is the business meeting for the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. I'm Brian Johnson, and our first order of business here is roll call and establishing a quorum. We have a couple of board members online, so I'm going to turn it over to our board counsel, Jeet Dua, to walk us through that process.
Thank you, Secretary Johnson. Board Member Andrews, are you online? Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, I see you. I didn't see you down there.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Can you state the reason for your absence today, inability to not be here in person?
I am ill
Thank you.
with a contagious cold that I do not wish to share with anyone.
Thank you. And so the board now will take a vote to establish a quorum, and once that is completed, we will have a quorum, and Board Member Bosler can also participate online.
Member Andrews?
Here.
Member Bosler?
Present. Keely Bosler.
Member Countryman?
Present.
Member Griego?
Here.
Secretary Johnson?
And I'm here. So we have a quorum?
I'm sorry, we need to take a vote on to establish the quorum.
Okay.
Yep.
Motion
Yes.
or no?
Yes, there's a motion to establish the quorum. You need to make a motion. Someone needs to make a motion.
Go ahead and make the motion to establish a quorum.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll call the roll.
Member Andrews?
Aye.
Member Bosler?
Aye.
Member Countryman?
Aye.
Member Griego?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson?
Aye. Okay, now we have a quorum. We have our next agenda item here is welcome and introductions. I want to note that we're joined here today by our Executive Officer, Chris Leaf, our Chief Engineer, Michael Wright, Board Counsel, Jeet Dua, and Deputy Executive Officer, Andrea Buckley, and last but not least, Jonah Knapp, who serves many functions, but including, for purposes of today, our board clerk. I'll turn to our executive officer to see if we have any announcements.
No announcements today. No announcements today.
No announcements today. Next here, I will review the agenda. How's my mic, by the way? It sounds a little bit odd to me, but maybe it's excellent. I'll try to stay on the mic. So for our agenda here, we have the minutes and then the consent items as usual. The next one after that is public comment, and that's for items that are not on the agenda. And you're encouraged but not required to bring a speaker card forward to Jonah or Chris if you'd like to speak. After that, we have our legislative update, our standard item for the Corps of Engineers. And my understanding is we don't have a report today. And then we're on to 2 board items, which are both action items. One is a cease and desist order for an enforcement case issued to Baxtender Tiara. And the second one is a permit for Nadal's Cross Levee fence project in the pocket area. Both of those are action items. Department of Water Resources report, staff activity reports, board comments, and committee updates. And then I'll run through our upcoming meetings. The next item on the agenda would be a closed session. I'm not sure if we have one.
We do not.
There will be no closed session, so there will be no closed session report, and then we will adjourn the meeting. I don't know exactly how long this will go, but I have every reason to believe that we will not be breaking for lunch. and we'll power through possibly with a break in between the two action items. Moving on to agenda item number 4, this is the minutes. And I reviewed the minutes, and we have one edit that I want to mention that to the minutes that came through after they were first distributed. I believe the updated version has been circulated to the board and is in the files. I'll read the change so that everybody is clear. It's the sentence about Nancy Niskern from American River Trees, delete what was there and add in its place Nancy Niskern, American River Trees, provided a description of the process and living river principles that were used to guide the design of recent updates to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Napa River Flood Control Project. And we'll be voting on the minutes, including that change to them. Before I ask for a motion, I'll see if we have any public comment on the minutes from in the room, online. Seeing no comment and hearing no comment, I'll ask for a motion on the minutes.
I'll go ahead and make the motion, including the changes you've noted.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Let's have the vote.
Member Andrews?
Aye.
Member Bosler?
Not voting.
Member Countryman?
Yes.
Member Griego?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson?
Aye. The minutes are approved. Our next item is the consent calendar, and for that, I'll turn to our Chief Engineer, Michael Wright, to walk us through.
Good morning, Secretary Johnson and members of the board. Michael Wright, Chief Engineer for the board. Today we have 2 items on consent. 5A is to approve permit number 19699, the Natomas Cross Canal Channel Enhancement and Levee Berm Project by Reclamation District 1001. There are also 3 permitted encroachments that required modification due to that project. Those are included in item 5A, that's permit 1700-1, 16293-1, and 1896-1. 5B is to approve permit number 20055, the Patrick Shea Conservation Bank by Gil Sizer Slough LLC in Sacramento County. I think I didn't mention 5A is in Sutter County. Both of those items are in order. I've heard of no objections from the Army Corps or any other agencies or individuals.
Thank you. Are there any board members or members of the public who would like to remove these items from the consent calendar, either of them? Online. Does anybody have any other comment on the consent calendar? And with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and make the motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, and we'll have the vote.
Member Andrews?
Aye.
Member Bosler?
Aye.
Member Countryman?
Yes.
Member Griego?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson?
Aye. Okay, our next item is number 6 on the agenda. This is for public comment. And again, this is for topics that are not on the agenda. And as usual, we ask that people speak for 3 minutes, and we may talk, but are not allowed to take any action items. I have at least one for Mr. Tom Engler.
Good morning, Secretary Johnson, members of the board, Tom Engler, MBK Engineers, here today representing Reclamation District 1001. So I was going to speak on consent, but I thought it'd be just as appropriate in public. Just wanted to thank you for approving that on consent today, but more than that, this permit's been going on since March of 2022. It's been a very agonizing journey to get to today. But right there alongside me was Dustin Sinowski, your staff member, who helped us through a lot of issues, getting through issues with the Army Corps and making sure everything was in order. So I'm just here today to to express to you my sincere thanks to Dustin for helping me get to today. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Dustin, and everybody else who worked on that. Do we have anybody else here in the room who would like to make a public comment while Tom turns off the microphone? And online?
None online.
Okay. Next up, we have our legislative update. As usual, we had a written update that was distributed to all of the board members. I'll stop first to see if our executive officer or then any members of the board have anything they would like to add or any comments or questions.
I'll just highlight one item. In the ledge report is included a discussion of the FEMA Review Council report and of recommendations on FEMA reform. We intend to have a deeper discussion of that report, its implications on the state, in our coordinating committee meeting in July.
Thank you. Board Member Griego.
I just wanted to put on the record that I had some concerns about what was being, given to us in our staff report in regards to how FEMA might be revised. The FEMA pre-hazard mitigation grants that were provided through the Department of FEMA were so instrumental in the work that Yuba County did as it relates to our levee improvements. They were the first to identify the problems that we had with our levees and gave us the justification of asking the state for upgrades. And so that was a vital grant program that they provided. So I understand that there's going to probably be a lot of changes between now and the time that this is adopted. So I'll reserve the rest of my comments, but I just wanted to make note of that. Thank you.
Thank you. My understanding is Board Member Bosler has her hand up, and now she's on screen too.
Yes, hi. I just want to thank staff for putting this report in the agenda. And I just think I want to echo what Board Member Griego said about the importance of our input into this process. I know that many have already weighed in before the report got to this point. I have, as someone who's been supported the fiscal condition of the state, like this is an issue that is not inconsequential and is potentially like a really significant issue that the state and local governments together will need to work through if there are major shifts at the federal level as are described in this document. So this is an issue that I'm really glad that we're going to take a deeper dive at the coordinating committee on this. I think a lot of awareness in our community is necessary on this issue because I think a lot of people just understand that the emergency response work just happens and they don't see and blur, the lines are blurred in those response efforts. But I will tell you that the lion's share of the money is coming from the federal government related to emergency response. And so if there is a market shift in that will mean that somebody else will have to fill those gaps in. And that's something that needs to be planned for and budgeted for because you don't know when this is going to happen. As we've seen in the Central Valley, like sometimes floods happen on a bright sunny day, right? So we really need to monitor this carefully and just very thankful for the staff putting this on the agenda and that it's going to be a topic of deeper discussion.
Thank you. That was Board Member Bosler. Any other board members who would like to comment on the legislative update? I'll say that I share the concerns expressed by board members Griego and Bosler, and I look forward to hearing more about this at the coordinating committee. And I know that many of our people here will be heavily focused on it and other folks at the state. want to encourage you, if it's not obvious, to bring us anything and recommendations for any way that we might help to elevate this and make sure that people understand the stakes and get a good result. Thank you. Do I take public comments on the? With that, I will take public comments if there are any on this legislative report. First from the room. And online.
None online.
Thank you. Our next item, since we do not have a number 8 Corps of Engineers report, is our first board item. And this is an action item. It is number 9A. I will read the whole thing and then introduce and bring up folks to speak here. And this is to affirm a cease and desist order for enforcement case number 2024-15436 issued on February 2nd, 2026 to Boxender Tiara in Yolo County.
Good morning, Secretary Johnson and members of the board. I'm Jennifer Scheck, an attorney with the Department of Water Resources. I'm here today assisting the board enforcement section with respect to the cease and desist order, or CDO, issued to the respondent Boxender Tiara. I'm joined by Angeles Caliso and Ian Giocaris, who are with the board's enforcement section on this matter. I have a few preliminary remarks before Mr. Giocaris provides a detailed description of this enforcement case. Next slide, please. Thank you. Ultimately, board staff is here to request the board affirm the CDO issued by the executive officer on February 2nd, 2026 to the respondent, Boxender Tiara. The encroachments include several pipes in various conditions that cross the levee slope, as well as a concrete retaining wall cut into the levee prism. Since April of 2024, a notice to comply, a notice of violation, and this CDO were all issued to the respondent, each detailing the violations associated with the encroachments and respondent's choice of pathways to the necessary corrective actions that respondent must do in order to reach compliance. Each notice also provided its own responsive deadlines. The CDO, as issued by the board's executive officer, required that respondent submit a plan and schedule and complete the corrective actions on or before March of 2026. You'll hear from Mr. Giocaris on the history of the difficulties that staff has had in making contact with the respondent and their several representatives. A full meeting between staff and respondent's representatives regarding the notice of violation did occur on November 19th, 2025. But since then, no response to any contact attempts have been received from respondent or any representatives. As for the procedural overview for today's meeting, the CDO was effective immediately upon its issuance and was properly served. However, Water Code requires that the board schedule today's meeting no less than 30 days after the issuance of the CDO. Next slide, please. At today's meeting, the board may affirm, amend, modify, stay, or rescind this CDO. The respondent was properly notified of today's meeting, but is not required to attend. If the respondent attends, respondent may contest the CDO and may submit evidence to the board. If the respondent does not attend today, the board may affirm and approve the CDO by default. That said, this is not an evidentiary hearing, and the board's decision at today's meeting is not a final action. If the board affirms the CDO, respondent may avoid further enforcement action by reaching compliance according to the requirements listed in the CDO. Specifically, the first step towards compliance is that the respondent must start the process by submitting a compliance plan and schedule within 7 days of the board's affirmation. On the other hand, if after this meeting the board affirms the CDO and respondent fails to comply with it, The board staff will return at a later date for an evidentiary enforcement hearing. Please let me know if you have any questions.
This is Brian Johnson. I would just like to check to see if we know if we have a representative for respondents here today in the room or online.
No one's raising their hand online.
Okay, not that we're aware of. I'll walk through the process from here out so everybody, board members especially, know what to expect. We will continue with the board presentation, and then we will have questions from the board to staff. And then if a representative of respondent does arrive, they will have an opportunity to respond. The board will have an opportunity to ask them questions, and then board staff will have an opportunity to reply. At that point, we'll take public comment, if there is any, and then we'll bring the board back to discussion and a potential vote. Thank you.
Thank you. May I present Mr. Geocaris?
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, members of the board. I am Ian Geocaris, Board Enforcement Section staff, here to present the CDO issued to Baxter Thiara in further detail. As stated by staff counsel, we are requesting the board affirm the CDO that was issued to Baxter Thiara on February 2nd, 2026, under enforcement case 2024-15436. Next slide. Starting with the vicinity map here on this slide, the violation locations are identified within the red rectangle that you can see there. The site is located approximately 7 miles from downtown Sacramento along a section of Old River Road on the right side of the Sacramento River. Next slide. Zooming in on the site, Figure 1 shows an aerial view of the respondent's property next to the Sacramento River. The property's parcel is outlined in white. The levee is shown in yellow, and the encroachments are located in red on the northern side of the property. These are the unauthorized and non-compliant encroachments that are the subject of the CDO. Next slide. Next, I'd like to go through each of the encroachments in a little bit greater detail. Starting with violations 1 through 3. This is pipe DSID number 168. This is an unpermitted 10-inch steel irrigation pipe that appears to be abandoned and was showing signs of severe corrosion. It is important to note that this pipe was noted in the most recent USACE inspections as well. The pipe violates Section 6A because it is unpermitted, and Section 124A because it appears to be abandoned and not actively used. This is a problem because the board's encroachment standards statement of reasons for Section 124A states, abandoned pipelines and conduits slowly deteriorate, causing loss of strength to withstand overlying load traffic. A collapsed pipeline or conduit within a levee can cause differential or excessive settlement of the levee, or can provide a seepage path that may lead to internal erosion and subsequent failure of the levee. The structural adequacy of pipelines and conduits within a levee must be maintained to ensure the continued stability of the levee. In addition, the pipe violates California Water Code Section 8700 because in neglecting the upkeep of this pipe, it may adversely affect the state plan of flood control. Next slide. Next are violations 4 through 9 for pipe DSID number 169. This pipe is a permitted 10-inch steel irrigation pipe showing significant deterioration. It is currently open to the waterway, as you can see in the picture on the right on the slide. And it is also important to note this was also noted in the most recent USAC inspection. This pipe violates Title 23, Section 6B because the permit remains under previous ownership and has not been updated to reflect the current property owner. It also violates Section 123D6 because a video inspection was requested on May 11, 2024 in the original notice to comply, but no inspection documents have been provided. In addition, the pipe violates Section 123D8 because it is open to the waterway, and Section 124A because it appears to be abandoned and no longer in use. Finally, the pipe violates California Water Code Section 8700 as well, because again, in neglecting the upkeep of this pipe, it may adversely affect the state plan of flood control. Next slide. Next is the violations 10 through 15 for pipe the DSID number 170, which is a unpermitted 12-inch steel irrigation pipe. It also has like an abandoned section of pipe on the waterside levee slope about 20 feet long and laying right next to the main line. The main line did appear to look like it was still in use, but it was unclear what that secondary section of pipe was there for. I think possibly after it had been repaired, they just left it right next to it. And this pipe violates section 123.6A because it is a unpermitted pipe. Violates section 123D12 for failing to meet the minimum cover requirements, as the pipe was right on the surface of the levee slope. It violates section 123D13 for failing to meet the minimum spacing requirements. In addition, 124A and 124A2 for the abandoned section, which appeared to be abandoned and no longer in use. Finally, in its current unpermitted condition, again, neglecting the maintenance and inspection of the pipe poses a hazard to and interferes with the state plan of flood control, making it in violation of 8700 as well. Next slide. The next violations are 16 and 17 for pipes 175 and 19027, which are permitted, a 12 and 16-inch steel irrigation pipe. However, during the board's review of the historical documentation and pipes on the respondent's parcel, no record of a current inspection was found for these pipes. These pipes violate section 6B because the permits have not been updated to reflect the current ownership. They violate section 123D6 because the video inspection was requested on May 11, 2024 in the original NTC, but again, no inspection documents have been provided. And finally, they violate 8700 as well because in neglecting the inspection, they could pose a potential hazard to the state plan of flood control. Next slide. And here we have 18 through 23, the violations for the retaining wall, which is an unpermitted 4-foot tall, 50 linear foot on the landside levee toe of the levee. It is showing significant cracking and overturning. You can see in that picture there, it's at maybe like a 30-degree angle off of straight up. And more worryingly, there was no record of construction of this retaining wall that I could find when I was looking back through all of the historical as-built documents and all of that. So we don't really know where it came from. It's unpermitted, and it's failing. And this is, again, important to note that this was in the USACE inspections noted in there as well. So it violates section 6A because it is unpermitted, violates 125A1 because retaining walls of this size require engineering design by a licensed civil engineer. In addition, the wall violates section 125A2 because there was no reinforcement that could be identified, which is a requirement for retaining walls constructed within the levee system. It also violates section 125A3 because there appears to be no drainage incorporated into the retaining wall design either. And finally, it violates 8700 as well because in its current condition poses a hazard to and interferes with the state plan flood control. Additionally, it violates 8712 which requires any cuts or modifications or alterations to the levee to have prior board authorization. Next slide. All right, that concludes the discussion of all the different encroachments and their violations. As you can see on the slide, I've put all of those together in a bit of a summary there. And next, I'd like to walk through the timeline for the board's contact with the respondent leading up to the issuance of the cease and desist order in today's board meeting. Next slide. So on April 11th, 2024, the original notice to comply was sent to the respondent. On April 23rd, the board received confirmation that the notice to comply had been delivered to an agent of the respondent at the address of record, which is the 1227 Bridge Street address, which was associated with the parcel's ownership. As you can see there, we have the green slip confirming that an agent had signed for Baxter Thiara, the person that the land parcel is registered to. So following delivery of the notice to comply, the board received no communication from the respondent throughout the months of April, May, and into June. On June 11th, 2024, after I reached out, an LMA representative provided staff with Sarb Thiara's business card, as you can see there, as the primary point of contact for the parcel and its operations. Board staff then made multiple contact attempts over the next several months regarding the notice to comply and violations. A more detailed timeline is provided in the staff report section and staff report section 5.3, and the key correspondence records are included in attachment D of the staff report. Next slide. After a prolonged period with no response from the respondent or their representatives, the board issued a notice of violation on May 15, 2025. On May 29, 2025, the notice of violation was returned as undeliverable from the same 1227 Bridge Street address where the earlier notice to comply had previously been successfully delivered. Board staff then reissued the notice of violation on June 17, 2025, with an updated compliance date. In addition, the notice of violation was posted on-site on June 20th, 2025. Next slide. All right, so on June 20th, 2025, I posted the notice of violation on-site at the property, at the parcel that has the encroachments. I put a copy on the control panel that you can see there for the equipment on the site, the pumps and all that, as well as right on the lock on the main access gate to the parcel that you can see in the middle picture there. So then I was waiting in my car for a few minutes while I was there. Someone entered the property through the main gate. I saw him remove the posted notice of violation from the gate as he entered. And then after that, I went and flagged him down and I spoke with him. And he confirmed that the property was owned by the Thiara family and stated that he would provide the notice of violation materials, that manila envelope, to Mr. Sarb Thiara later that same day. I just want to highlight, too, that this does meet the Water Code 8703 requirements for delivery. Next slide. So after the notice of violation was posted on site, the board received no communication from the respondent throughout July, August, or early September. Then, on September 16th, 2025, I received a call from someone named Anna Carmichael, who identified herself as an agent representing the respondent, Backshinder Thiara. During that conversation, she indicated an intent to comply with the notice of violation, but also requested an extension to provide a compliance plan. Following that conversation, I sent a follow-up email offering to consider a 30-day extension as long as justification for the request was provided, given the prolonged lack of response to both the original notice to comply and the notice of violation. Receiving no response, multiple follow-up attempts were then made by staff to contact Mrs. Carmichael. However, the board did not receive any further response. On October 30th, I received a call from a new person named Martha Navarro, who identified herself as the new point of contact representing the respondent. Mrs. Navarro requested a Teams meeting to discuss the notice of violation and to coordinate the next steps. And so then on November 19th, the board staff, we held a Teams meeting with Sarb Thiara, Jasmine Thiara, and Martha Navarro. During that meeting, it became apparent that the respondent had not thoroughly reviewed the notice of violation or developed any understanding of the required corrective actions. Additionally, they did not present questions or information that demonstrated meaningful progress towards any kind of compliance. After the November 19th, 2025 meeting, board staff received no further communications from the respondent or their representatives, and as a result, the board staff prepared and issued the cease and desist order to the respondent on February 2nd, 2026. Additionally, the cease and desist order was posted on site on February 6, 2026. Board staff also made additional efforts to provide notice by emailing the CDO materials to the respondent on February 20th, 2026, and again on April 1st, 2026. Then, board staff sent an email last week to the respondent with the staff report as well as the today's meeting agenda, so they had ample opportunity to be here if they chose to. I wanted to show, next slide, please. I wanted to show a photograph with the CDO and showing that it was posted right at that exact same location where I had initially posted the notice of violation and where the notice of violation was picked up by someone claiming to be a representative of the respondent and that they would hand that to them. Next slide. So on this slide, I'd like to briefly discuss the board's authority in this case. The board's regulatory authority is established under the California Water Code provisions listed in the first bullet point. And through these provisions, the legislature has determined that the state has primary and supreme interest in adequately protecting the lands from overflows. Therefore, the board is empowered to establish and enforce the standards for the maintenance and operation of levees within the state plan of flood control. Next slide. In this case, the respondent's property is located adjacent to the Sacramento River, as you can see in that aerial view in Figure 1. It's a project channel, and the federal levee runs on the north portion of that property. As such, the respondent's property is located within an adopted plan of flood control, and the encroachments on the property are subject to compliance with the board's standards. Next slide. So next, I'd like to highlight the corrective actions on a per encroachment basis. First, for pipe DSID 168, within 7 days of the board's affirmation of this CDO, board staff is requesting that if the pipe is no longer needed, that the respondent submit a compliance plan to remove the pipe and the associated facilities. If the crossing is still needed, we're asking that they perform a video inspection to assess the condition of the pipe and to assess what the correct next steps would be. And finally, to submit a board permit application for the irrigation facility as it is currently unpermitted. Next slide. Next is pipe 169. And so again, within 7 days, pipe's no longer needed to submit a compliance plan to remove the pipe and the associated facilities. And if the pipe is still needed, we are requesting that they submit a permit application to replace the pipe in kind because of the advanced deterioration. As you can see in the picture there, just a large, like, corroded hole in the pipe. Next slide. For pipe 170, first of all, that we've been requesting to stop using the pipe if it is currently in use. We're requesting that if the pipe is no longer needed, to submit a compliance plan to remove it and the associated facilities. And if the pipe is still needed, again, to perform a video inspection to assess the health and determine the next steps towards compliance. And finally, to submit a board permit as the irrigation facility is currently unpermitted. Next slide. For pipes 175 and 19027, within 7 days, the board staff is requesting that the crossing, if it is still needed, that a video inspection is performed again to assess the health of the pipes. And additionally, to submit a name change request in order to update the permit to the current ownership. Next slide. Finally, for the retaining wall, board staff has requested the respondent submit a compliance plan to remove the retaining wall and to restore the levee slope to its original unaltered conditions. Next slide. All right, so next I'd like to highlight the flood control easements associated with the respondent's property. Through the Sacramento-San Joaquin Drainage District, the board holds multiple flood control easements along the northern portion of the respondent's property. As shown in the figure on the right from the DWR's Geomatics Department, the easement deed areas are shown in green and the encroachment locations are shown in red. Specifically, the encroachments are located within easement deed number 2393 dated December 9th, 1957, and easement deed number 03662 dated February 7th, 1967. These easements give the board additional rights which include access, maintenance, and operation of the levee and the associated flood control facilities within the easement areas. Next slide. This levee is part of the Reclamation District, or it is the Reclamation District 1600 and 537 Sac-Yolo North Levee System, which comprises approximately 32 miles of levee and roughly 102 people that are protected by the levee. It surrounds agricultural land and some residential land. According to the USACE National Levee Database, the levee system protects more than $11 million in property value. Although, by my, kind of looking into the documentation and into the parcel, I think that there's probably, it protects a lot more than that because the parcel that the encroachments are located on was valued at upwards of $9 million to begin with. So I think that number is a little bit low. The system is currently active in the USACE PL 8499 rehabilitation program because it currently has an approved letter of intent and a system-wide improvement framework, which is currently under USACE review. With this context, it is very important to address these encroachments as they are identified in the most recent USACE inspections, because the levee's current condition can have implications for future funding eligibility and the rehabilitation assistance, should it be needed. Next slide. Regarding the CEQA analysis, affirming the CDO constitutes an administrative action requiring compliance with law to address unauthorized encroachments within the state plan of flood control. And by affirming the CDO, the preparation and submittal of a compliance plan and schedule will be required. The board retains full discretion to consider environmental impacts and conduct any required CEQA review upon consideration of the plan. Finally, affirming the CDO does not approve or authorize any ground disturbing activities and is exempt from the provisions of CEQA under Public Resources Code Section 21084 and under California Code Regulations Title 14, Section 15321. Next slide. So, in summary, an agent of the respondent signed for the original notice to comply at the 1227 Bridge Street address. We have the record of that in 2024. After multiple contact attempts with no response from the respondent, a notice of violation was drafted and hand-delivered to an employee of the respondent who said that they would give it to the respondent in 2025. Later that year, after representatives contacted me, board staff, we had a meeting with the respondents' representatives to discuss the notice of violation and to answer any questions as they had requested the meeting. After that, no communication from the respondent or their representatives. Following the CDO was delivered in February 2026. And then after that, no communication has been received by the board, by the respondent or their representatives since the call on November 19th, 2025. Next slide. So, staff recommends that the board adopt the CEQA findings that affirm the cease and desist order is categorically exempt from the provisions of CEQA under the Public Resources Codes shown. The board's staff recommends that the board affirm the CDO issued to Baxter Thiara on February 2nd, 2026 for enforcement case 2024-15436. And staff recommends the board direct the executive officer to take necessary actions to bring the encroachments into compliance in accordance with the CDO and file a notice of exemption with the state clearinghouse. And that is it. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. We'll see if any board members have any questions for our presenters today. Board Member Grego.
Do we know how long that retaining wall has been there like that?
No, again, when I was looking through the as-built documents, all that kind of stuff, it wasn't, included as a feature or even like a little line or anything that I could see at that location. And so it's, I was a little bit, concerned that work had just been done at some point. But it looks pretty old, definitely older than 20 years it looks like, so.
And that's going to be a very expensive fix.
Yes.
Thank you.
As part of our,
Board Member Countryman.
as part of our notifications on this, is the landowner aware of the penalties that could be assessed? I'm reading through the documents, like a $50,000 fine could be assessed if he doesn't take action on this?
I believe that, yes, in the previous, notice violation and notice to comply, we had made them aware of the penalties, although I would need to go back and see the exact language that was used.
In the meeting that you had, was it online or in person?
It was a Teams call, yeah.
The Teams call. Was the owner involved with that call?
So this is where it kind of, right now it's registered to Baxter Thiara. The parcel is registered to Baxter Thiara. However, the LMA provided us the business card for Sarb Thiara, Baxter's husband. I ended up doing some, kind of looking online and whatnot. And yeah, so we had been in contact with, or Mr. Sarb Thiara was on that call. And he was the primary person that I was speaking to on that call.
I mean, these are serious violations.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to
I'm just a little
him.
concerned at his personal lack of urgency about this. But
Me too.
thank you.
Through the chair.
Board Member Grego.
Sorry, one other question. When you had that Teams call with the Tahara, was language a barrier or understanding of the urgency of this? Do you think that was a barrier?
Not that I, no.
Okay. So they understood why they were there.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Board members Bosler or Andrews? Okay, hearing nothing. I'll just say I want to second and third what board members Countryman and Grego said. Just to restate the obvious again, this is really serious, and I know you'll do everything you can to be in touch with them and make sure they understand the situation and the consequences here. And that's a good segue to see if, while we've been talking, a member of the family, oh, there's the microphone, member of the family or their representatives have come online. I don't think anybody's come into the room.
Nobody is raising their hand online, but Member Bosler is.
Thank you. Board Member Bosler.
Yeah, I just want to commend the staff for the thorough accounting of the communications records. I think in times in the past when these sort of serious situations have brought to the board, these were things that I left wanting, and I really appreciate the very detailed chronology, because of course we want to give people ample notice, and we want to give them time and to understand. And I think there's been significant effort put forward by the board staff. So I just appreciate the well-documented materials today that gave us a better understanding of what has been done to date to seek compliance.
Thank you. I agree. That was Board Member Bosler, and I'm Brian Johnson. Board Member Andrews, you're looking thoughtful? No comment? I don't think we have any comment.
I simply want to echo the comments made by the other board members, and I did take a quick look through the NOV, and the $50,000 fine was actually cited in detail in the July 25 NOV. So I feel like the efforts made by our staff to communicate on this have been extensive, comprehensive, well documented, and I appreciate that effort as well.
Thank you. Before I turn to public comment, I'll just check one more time to see if our presenters have any final comments. Thank you. Do we have any public comment from the room or online?
None online.
Okay. And with that, I'll bring the item back to the board for any final discussion and a motion as you see fit.
I'll go ahead and make the motion for the recommended action.
I second the motion.
So we have a motion and a second to affirm the cease and desist order as and other actions as recommended in the staff report. Call for a vote.
Member Andrews?
Aye.
Member Bosler?
Aye.
Member Countryman?
Aye.
Member Griego?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson?
Aye. Thank you, everybody. We're making pretty good time here. It's only 9:55, but I'd still like to take a 5-minute break to organize things for the next item, and we'll be back and resume at 10 o'clock. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, everybody. It is 10:05. So I'm working on my Dolan 5. I'm Brian Johnson, and we are back in session here. We're going to turn to agenda item 9B now. This is for a permit number 19916, Nadal's Cross Levee Fence Project in the Pocket Area, Sacramento County. And we have board staff Travis Comstock, if I'm correct, here to present the item.
Thank you, Secretary Johnson. Members of the board, good morning. My name is Travis Comstock. I'm here to present item 9B along with my section manager, Selva Mohan. We're going to discuss permit number 19916, the Nadal's Cross Levee Fence and the stairs. Next slide, please. This project seeks to create a cross levee fence and a 14-foot wide double leaf gate on the crown, as well as some landside steps with a metal handrail. Next slide, please. Here we can see a vicinity map. The project is located just west of I-5 on the north end of the Big Pocket neighborhood. Next slide, please. The property is just downstream from Scott's Seafood. To give you a little idea of where it's located, it is along the left bank of the Sacramento River, and the yellow bar there represents the encroachment location. Next slide, please. There is a slight correction that needs to be made to this slide. The stairs shown in yellow will actually be inside of the fence, so on the left side. And the fence itself runs from the landside toe at the bottom to the river's edge at the top, and that is shown in red there. It is along 725 Clipper Way. Next slide, please. This is the submitted drawings. We can see the cross levee fence at the top with the leaf gate for maintenance access right at the crown in the center there. And at the bottom are the landside steps with the handrail. The handrail is required per city standards. Next slide, please. Going over some of the details of this project, the fence itself will be 6 feet high with 8-foot wide sections. On the water side, those sections will be removable. There's about 50 feet in length. And on the land side, there's 30 feet in length of fence with 5 sections that are not removable. The double leaf gate at the crown is 14 feet wide. The steps themselves are going to be about 33 steps, each 36 inches wide, flush with the levee slope. And there is going to be a landing at the top and the bottom. At the bottom, that landing is 36 by 42 and 12 by 36 at the top. Again, the metal handrail on the landside stairs is per city standards. Next slide, please. To go over some of the background of the American River Common Features project and how that pertains to these steps and stairs as well as the fence, I have Selva Mohan.
Thank you, Travis. Good morning, Secretary Johnson, members of the board. Selva Mohan, manager of the Sacramento Levee section. In a couple of my slides, I will give you a brief background of how it relates to the seepage stability work that happened over the last number of years along the Sacramento River East Levee project. As we all know, Corps of Engineers, in partnership with the board and Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency known as SAFECA, implemented levee improvements along the Sacramento River East Levee. This particular cross levee fence project location is located within the Sacramento River East Levee Contract 2 project, which was completed in 2021. Next slide. Before the Army Corps project come into place, there was a permanent permitted cross levee fence that was in place at that location. And the permit number was 15987 GM, and that was issued in 1992. Army Corps letter of no objection also in place for that original permit. Next slide. This slide shows the originally existed cross levee fence at that location prior to the implementation of the Army Corps project. Next slide. For the Army Corps project, a number of encroachments were required removal, including this particular cross levee fence. And as we all know, Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency, SAFCA, implemented an encroachment removal incentive program to provide financial assistance to property owners to encouraging voluntary removal of the encroachments. This particular cross levee fence was removed in early 2021 following the encroachment removal incentive program, and the Army Corps engineers started the construction in early 2021. Next slide. The few things to highlight in that removal agreement signed by the homeowner with the SAFCA is that it requires the homeowners to submit a new permit application prior to reconstructing any removed encroachments, as highlighted in the yellow box on the right side. This requirement is also consistent with our California Code of Regulations Title 23, Waters Division 16A, which states every proposal or plan of work, including the placement, construction, or reconstruction of encroachments, must be approved by the board prior to the commencement of the work. Next slide. So following those requirements, the homeowner submitted a permit application to reconstruct a permanent cross levee fence at the original location in April 2023. And then the application, after board staff review, was sent to the Army Corps of Engineers Section 408 review in October 2024. And then in April 28 of this year, Corps sent the 408 LOP letter of permission letter. And here we are scheduled for this action item. Next slide. Following the completion of the Army Corps project, the homeowners requested the board to install temporary cross levee fence at the exact location to minimize trespassing and to improve safety and to protect their privacy. Following discussions, in May of 2023, board staff issued minor alteration WA 2023-078, authorizing installation of a temporary cross levee fence at that location. The minor alteration required the homeowners to have extension request every 4 months to make sure those fences are properly maintained. And since then, they have requested extension, and board staff have provided extensions. The last extension was provided in February 26 of this year, which is set to expire on July 1 of this year. Next slide. This image shows the temporary cross levee fence currently existing at that project location. As you can see probably on the right side photo, these fences are sitting on concrete blocks without properly secured in the ground. So these can be moved or knocked over or pushed. So these are not a secured fence system. Next slide. So here I am transferring the presentation back to Travis to provide the code compliance and take the action items presented.
Thank you, Selva. Yeah, to go over some of the elements and how they pertain to the different sections within Title 23 and comply. Let's start with the fence panels themselves. The landside, again, will be attached to an existing fence that is parallel to the landside toe, as well as attached to the gate on the crown. The waterside panels will be removable in accordance with Section 126A5, which states that anything partially or fully within the water during a high water event must be removable. The 14-foot wide gate across the levee crown meets Section 126B1, requiring access for maintenance or equipment. Next slide, please. The stairs are going to be constructed with materials that are resistant to deterioration in accordance with Section 137C1. They will also be flush with the levee slope, complying with Section 137C4. Next slide, please. The applicant did submit some hydraulic analysis with their application. Board staff reviewed this hydraulic blockage calculation. It was done in accordance with the Army Corps Section 408 categorical permission standards. This was done by evaluating the ratio of the surface area of the proposed encroachments with the total cross-sectional area at that particular river mile. This was river mile 53.52. The calculation resulted in a blockage of 0.96%, which sits below the 1% threshold that would require additional analysis. Thus, the project impact is considered negligible and not anticipated to affect the federal project. Next slide, please. Taking a look at some of the ground disturbance activities, the fence posts will be excavated to a depth of 18 inches. Where the gate is along the crown, it's going to be excavated to 16 inches. The stairs themselves will go to a depth of 12 inches, and the landings will be 4 inches thick, but will be flush with the slopes. All fence posts will be embedded in concrete, and no seepage or stability impacts are anticipated, and the performance of the levee is not expected to be adversely affected. Here we can see the property parcel. The outline is shown on the left there, going from Clipper Way all the way to the water's edge. And this picture on the right shows the SSJDD easement highlighted in green on that layer, covering the levee. This agreement was signed on August 6, 1954, and goes in perpetuity. Next slide, please. Board staff has determined that this project is exempt from CEQA under the following: Class 2 replacement or reconstruction categorical exemption, as well as Class 3 new construction or conversion of small structures categorical exemption, and lastly, under Class 4, minor alterations to land categorical exemption. Next slide, please. The local maintaining area for this project is MA9. They endorsed the project on February 22nd, 2023, and the Army Corps sent their letter of permission on April 28th of this year. They stated that the proposed project will not be injurious to the public interest and should not impair the usefulness of the project works. Next slide, please. Board is granted the authority to regulate the levees under Water Code Section 8534, 8590 through 8610.5, and 8710, highlighting some of the different sections within Title 23. Section 6, the need for a permit pertains here because this is a new construction of the stairs and fence. Section 12 is highlighted as well because we do have an official protest, which we will cover later. Section 126, the fences and gates, and Section 137, miscellaneous encroachments, is where we can find the regulations on the steps. Next slide, please. In accordance with California Water Code 8610.5, the blockage calculations conducted by the applicant meets Army Corps and board standards and demonstrates that the proposed encroachments will have negligible effects on the conveyance of flood flows. No other scientific issues were raised or are known to staff. The proposed project was coordinated and reviewed with Section 408. The backfill procedure for the footings was approved by levee safety. They found that there's no impacts to the performance of the levee as a result of the proposed work. And the proposed project is not anticipated to result in any adverse effects on the SPFC here or within future projects or future events such as water surface elevation rise or changes in hydrology. Next slide, please. The aforementioned protest was received from the City of Sacramento on May 15th, 2026, This was after we submitted the staff report, which is why you probably just got the letter of protest this morning. The city seeks denial of the application by the board, stating that approving the cross levee fence would be in direct conflict with their shared use trail and create a physical barrier blocking public access at the location. Next slide, please. In trying to allow the applicant to construct their encroachments and working with the city, board staff has created these special conditions. Condition 14 acknowledges that the encroachments under this permit, including the gate and fence, may interfere with future levee maintenance, inspection, emergency response, construction, rehabilitation, or other authorized project requiring access along the levee crown and prism. Upon written notice from the board, the permittee shall, at the permittee's sole cost and expense, remove the encroachments and restore the levee to the pre-project condition within 30 days. The highlighted section in red there was a revision that was added after the staff report was submitted, just for the board's knowledge there. Next slide, please. In the event there is a change in property rights affecting the encroachments permitted herein, this permit will be immediately revoked and invalid or modified as necessary. Next slide, please. As such, board staff recommends that the board adopt the CEQA findings, approve permit number 19916 substantially the form provided, and direct the executive officer to take necessary action to prepare and execute the permit and related documents, and to prepare and file a notice of exemption with the state clearinghouse. Next slide, please. Thank you. And we do have a representative from the city here to help answer any questions.
Okay, and if that concludes the staff presentation, we'll start with questions from the board to our staff. Board Member Griega.
Thank you. So I remember when this project was started, I took a ride out there on the levees and saw all the gates and some of the non-permitted structures that were on that levee, and it was mine. And then I also knew about the city's plans to put a bike trail in that area as well. So, I have a lot of experience with maintenance on the levees, and sometimes that these gates really slow down the process and of maintenance in there. So I understand the letter. I read through the letter and kind of made some notes from the city of Sacramento. Their understanding was that these gates would not be permitted, and so it looks like they're moving forward on their project to. They've approved findings for environmental clearance, approved the final design, and preliminary engineering plans have been done, and they're seeking funding for the final segment of the trail. And it sounds like, what we're being asked is to permit this gate and this fencing and the stairways with this anticipation, with this trail system, being designated. So I guess my question is the temporary gate and what they have right now, is it working?
Yes, the temporary gate does work. I've had a couple site visits recently within this last year, and it has prevented us from easily going through, and we had to unlock it, so it's doing its job. But it does seem to be easily damaged in some locations, and I've noticed people just will cut right through it or push it over. So.
Yeah. So it's not embedded, it's got the balance thing.
Yeah,
and
resting
the
on
wind
some
can knock it over.
Concrete blocks.
Yeah, concrete blocks and stuff. Okay, well, I'm curious to hear from both the city and if the property owner is here as well, to hear from them as well. But, this, for me, the levee, it's all about being able to maintain, to be able to check the levees, to make sure that there are no damages and such. And are we going to go back to the same place that we were before this levee was reconstructed. You know, that there's going to be a number of gates that the maintenance people have to go through, or inspections that, you know, they have to go through a number of gates in order to look at this area. I'm curious how we're going to work this out. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Board Member Grego. I believe Board Member Countryman may be preparing to say something.
I think I'd like to hear from the homeowners before I ask questions.
Great, thank you. Board Members Bosler or Andrews? Okay, seeing nothing, I have a question. Condition number 15, in the event there is a change in property rights affecting the encroachments permitted herein, this permit will be immediately revoked and invalid or modified as necessary. Say a little bit more about what the change in property rights affecting the encroachments means, and what you're anticipating to happen here over the next few months in practical terms.
Working with the city, it does seem that they are going to begin obtaining easement rights at the end of this year, granting them recreational use along that stretch of the levee. And that would change the property owner's rights. You know, it would be superseded, and yeah.
And then what? Did somebody makes a proposal to the board for us to revoke the permit, or it's revoked immediately upon that change?
Immediately upon the change, once the change is recorded with the county recorder's office, I believe Council G. Dua has more insight into that.
Yes, so Board Counsel Jeet Dua speaking. So this language was, this permit condition language was drafted both by myself and Staff Counsel Sarah Backus. And the concept is that if and when the city obtains its, finishes its eminent domain process and records the recreational easement, then the permit is no longer valid. However, we do understand that the city's easement is only going to be for the levee crown, and if the homeowners wish to keep their stairs, the permit then would be modified to only allow for the stairs, and then the fence would come out.
And that would be a modification that comes back, but the original invalidation happens automatically for the levee crown or whatever property right is obtained.
Yes, and I think we would negotiate with the city, understand the city how much they actually need to do the work to create the trail, because some of the stairs may have to come out, the landing might have to come out. That's unknown at this point. So we're leaving the option open to have those discussions and modify the permit accordingly.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. Board Member Grego.
So I guess that leads me to my next question in regards to the eminent domain. And this type of project of putting a bike trail, is that qualified for an eminent domain action?
I would I don't advise the city, but yes. That is my understanding. The purpose of their condemnation proceedings is to obtain an easement to allow for the bike trail and have recreational access across this levee.
And do you have any information about how the property owners along that levee system feel about this trail system? I mean, have they been active participants about? Okay. I just curious. I'll leave it to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyway, that seems like a good transition to the public comments here. And I'm going to go through these in the order of the speaker cards. It's a staff recommendation, so we're treating the staff recommendation as the action.
Usually the proponent gets to present. That's okay.
We're going to roll through in the public comments in the order that I was handed them by our executive officer. And If there are any people who would like to speak who have not brought us a card, I'd encourage you to do so. But it's not required. At the end, we'll ask to see if anybody else has a comment. And after we take that comment, then we'll have an opportunity for staff to reply before we bring it back to the board for discussion. The first one we have here is from Sacramento City Public Works, and it's Jesse Gothen, I believe, followed by Michael Fry.
Good morning, Secretary Johnson and members of the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. Jesse Gothen, City of Sacramento Public Works Engineering Services Supervising Engineer, here to speak today on behalf of our Sacramento River Parkway project. This project is part of a plan for a regional system of trails to allow the public and active transportation users, bike riders, joggers, walkers to enjoy the natural resource of the Sacramento River. This project was presented to the board on May 26th of 2023, so I would defer you to that presentation to look at all the benefits and the overall scope of that project. Since then, we've been advancing the project. We completed the environmental studies. The City Council approved the CEQA documentation October of 2025, and our NEPA documentation is completed. In the next month, we will be certifying our NEPA. All the studies are completed, and we have our package for our right-of-way funds being submitted as of this week. So as stated in our letter of protest, we recommend denying the application for the permanent fence. In addition, as an interested party, the city was not given adequate time to review the impacts to some of our other properties and our facilities, including our Department of Utilities. Our emergency response has not reviewed this. So that concludes my comments.
Thank you. We have a speaker card from Michael Fry, City of Sacramento.
Thank you, Board. I think Jesse covered most everything. I just wanted to point out, we only received this application two weeks ago, and as Jesse said, there's several conditions that we just have not had an adequate chance to review. We haven't had a chance to talk to our Department of Utilities, which has a sump facility right there, to determine what the impacts are going to be. We haven't had a chance to talk to the police department or the fire department, just if they can even get their vehicles back there with the clearance. One of the other things that, just to comment on, we as a city have been working for the past 2 years on a public safety plan for the bike trail that's going to go through there. And again, we haven't had a chance to look at what the impacts are going to be with the conditions and with what's being proposed. So we would just ask that if the board's not going to deny the permit, that they just continue it for 90 days, this item for 90 days, so that we can have an adequate chance to review the conditions, and then also talk to staff to the extent that's necessary.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification, too. My next card says, any others in opposition? So do we have any others in the crowd who would like to speak in opposition? Online?
There are 2 hands raised online. I'm not sure whether they're in opposition or in support of.
If you're in opposition, come off mute and we'll have you speak. Not seeing it. We'll move on to the next comment. Everybody will get their chance if you come back later and would like to make a comment. Do we have the landowner? Okay. My understanding is the landowner is here, but has not put in a card. You're welcome to speak anytime. In the meantime, we have a Don Murphy, followed by a William McClendon.
My name's Don Murphy. I live at 7260 Pocket Road. I'm a levy private property owner. Secretary Johnson, board members, thank you for the opportunity. This is a little bit of a curveball for me. I was planning on just discussing the fact that there's a growing concern about the illegal vehicle traffic up on the levee in the form of teenagers riding mini bikes and motorcycles. That activity has been promoted as a result of the vandalism that occurs to the cross levee fences that are currently up, the minor adjustment fences, I believe they're called. Minor alteration fences, sorry. So now that there's this opposition to moving forward with what the board apparently is recommending as the permit process, I'm a homeowner that owns the levee. Contrary to the writings of some of the local publications, the city does not have the right-of-way access. They got a lot of work to do on that before that's completed. I'm obviously opposed to the bike trail. There's plenty of places on the Sacramento River that are available for people to enjoy the levee. And by the way, what is a levee for? It's for flood prevention and maintenance, correct? That's always been my understanding. The city of Sacramento recently voted to approve an environmental impact report, which is so out of date and does not speak to the current problems that we have along the river right now. The homeless camps, safety, security, vandalism is rampant. The lady who owns the cross levee fence at 7454 Pocket Road, Billy Ann Groza, she's constantly vandalized. People are cutting her fence down, they're removing the panels. This promotes the access by these people riding their mini bikes and motorcycles. They move so quickly, it's hard to stop them. I was able to stop a kid one day, about 14 years old, arrogant little guy. He thought he had every right to be up there riding a motorbike on the levee. This is the kind of stuff that's taking place up there right now. These cross-levee fences will hopefully be able to prevent some of that activity, provide private property protection. So I didn't have a planned speech for this part of it, but I'm venting right now, rightfully so. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have William McClendon. And I failed to mention that we set a timer for 3 minutes on these as is our custom, and we ask that people keep to that if they can.
Good morning. My name is William McClendon. I live at 692 River Lake Way in Sacramento. I am directly affected by what we're discussing here today. And I would mention that in purchasing my home at that location 13 years ago, I've enjoyed the ability to have my property protected by a gate that ensures that the liability that I would experience if someone tripped and falls on my property is protected. At present, 24 hours a day, if somebody goes up there and falls and hurts themselves, I'm personally and financially responsible for that. And at this stage in the game, the idea of the city eliminating having a bike path that's going to open this area up 24 hours a day is unacceptable to me with regard to there's no reason for anybody to be up there riding their bike in the middle of the night. There's no lights up there. It's dangerous. It's a foolish thing to do at this point. I think there's a tremendous amount that needs to be discussed. The current safety plan that's in place is nothing but reactive. And at present, there are just a tremendous amount of things that have not been worked out. So to hold up this process, which has been approved by both agencies, and they both agreed that the access to the levee is not being impaired, I see no reason for there to be any holdup in the approval of this gate. That would be it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your comment. Next up, we have a Gary Levach, who will correct my pronunciation if need be, followed by Ryan Bogle.
You're excused for your pronunciation. You're not the first. I'm Gary Leviach from the Desmond Law Firm representing the landowner here. I know a lot of you on the board, and thank you for this opportunity. I want to remind the board that under the California Code of Regulations that the only considerations and concerns is the effect on the flood control project. And the folks that own, construct, operate, and maintain this project have all said, good to go. There's no, Maintenance Area 9 endorses it. SAFCA has no objection. The Corps has issued a letter of permission. And I urge you to also issue the permit. Now, the city has objected because it has a plan for recreational use, and it is a plan. I'll tell you that our office and me personally have represented these folks on the river for over 40 years. And that project keeps coming. It's going to be here anytime. And I'm glad the city's making progress on it, but it's not guaranteed. They don't have funding for the entire 4-mile stretch of this recreational plan, this trail. And great, I hope they make the progress and it goes forward. But right now, the landowner has the right to defend, protect, use her property in any way that doesn't interfere with the SSJDD easement. And it's been found that this cross fence does not interfere. That it does not in any negative way affect the flood control works or the operation of the project. Now, in 2017, this board asked the Attorney General's office to examine the SSJDD easement. And the language that it was examined is the identical language of the easement that is impressed upon this property. And the conclusion of the AG, in a letter sent to, at that time, Vice Mayor Rick Jennings, who is still the City Council representative for the Pocket area, the AG concluded that there is no recreational or public use contained in that easement. None. None. So the city has no ownership right to this property. If it wants that ownership right, if this plan becomes a project, then it has the vast power of eminent domain. And that vast power of eminent domain can be wielded to acquire, to take what it is that they need for this project of public recreation. But there are protections that are afforded to the landowner during that process, and the Constitution mandates that just compensation be paid. And if that cross fence has to be taken down or those stairs have to be removed, if that's what the city wants in this project, then they have to pay for it, and that's what the law requires. So I urge you, at this particular juncture, as it relates to the flood control works, the flood control project, there's no negative effect. That is your concern, that is your charge, and I urge you to adopt or issue this permit. I see that my time is over.
Take as much time as you need.
Okay, all right. All right. The project right now is not a project, it's a plan. It's not funded. It may be, but it's not funded. There is no legal public access up at that levee right now. And as I said, the city does not have any ownership right as of now. It can acquire it, but again, it has to go through the public procedure, the constitutional procedure to exercise its vast power of eminent domain. Excuse me one second. I tried to shorten my comments because of that 3 minutes. I'll leave you with this. The city's primary objection is that this cross levee jeopardizes its project, and that is not so. It doesn't jeopardize their project in any way. If this plan does become a project, if it becomes a project, as I said before, eminent domain is the city's remedy. The city has that power to take private property for public use, and if it does so, if it adopts a resolution of necessity, if it has the funding for the project, then the Constitution mandates that the landowner is paid just compensation. Then and only then can the city go forward. And I say that public recreation is not your charge. Maybe it's the city's, but as far as flood control goes, this permit should be adopted. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, Joe.
Board Member Countryman.
I'm sorry.
Could you help me? One thing I'm puzzling on about this, and I hear loud and clear that we're here to protect the flood rights operation of the levee, not the recreation use. But how does this fence, well, a single fence doesn't stop anybody. I mean, there must be, you understand what I'm saying? There's got to be an upstream fence or a downstream fence to protect the property. How does this one fence crossing protect the property?
Well, it does, because we're not in a vacuum. There are other cross-levee fences out there in the pocket area. And also, well, little pocket, but we don't have to go there. And I wanted to expand on what Board Member Greco said about the temporary fencing, and whether it's adequate, whether it's working. It's not. It's not. As you've seen, it's on concrete blocks, and it can be moved. And I'll tell you, there's been a member of my office that's been out there visiting the client and inspecting the property, and had to put those fence sections back together because they've been moved so people can get through. And it depends on where they're coming from, Mr. Countryman. Are they coming from upriver or downriver?
Right, that's my question.
Yeah, the park is upriver, and that's where a lot of the access comes from.
So is there a gate there?
Where?
At the park. I'm familiar with this area, very familiar with this area. I used to live out there.
I'm not aware of a gate at Zacharias Park.
So what keeps the people from entering at Zacharias Park and just going downriver to where the...
Toward our property?
Yeah.
As far as I know, nothing but our cross fence does.
But that only stops, without another fence.
I understand coming from the other side.
Uh-huh.
I understand coming from the other side. But this does protect public, unwanted folks from getting to the property.
Because I'm still puzzled about that, but thank you.
It's not in isolation. There are other fences out there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Other questions for the representative of the landowner here from the board? That was Mr. Gary Leviach.
Yes, sir.
On behalf of the landowner.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a Ryan Bogle, followed by Renee Fullwider.
Thank you, board members, and thank you to the board staff for all your work on this and all the other projects out there. And just to clarify on that question that Council Member Countryman asked, there is another cross-levee fence, and actually there is an application in for that. It went into the Army Corps approval process on the same day. I think just the way it got stacked, it should be coming. Oh, go ahead.
Board Counsel Dua, can you state your name for the record, please?
Sorry. My name is Ryan Bogle. So, yes. So there is another cross-levee fence that is going through the application process, and at this time there's a temporary fence there. So
Okay, thank you, because I just didn't understand how a single fence could protect anything.
Makes sense. So my property, like I said, my name's Ryan Bogle. I live at 639 Brickyard Drive. I live there with my partner and our 10-year-old daughter. So we are directly impacted by this hearing. This fence, Gail Nadal's fence, is the only thing that protects our private property from trespass from public. So I'm encouraged to see the DWR Maintenance Area 9 and the Army Corps of Engineers granted their endorsements, recognizing that this fence does not hinder or flood protection or maintenance duties. And so I'd ask that the board affirms the board staff's recommendation to approve the fences today. Denial of this private fence application would be a signal of approval to the public that these properties are open for unrestricted access. This was the case when the fences came down in 2023 for the seepage work, I guess in 2021 for the seepage work, but when the fences were down, it was basically unhindered access. We had people going through on bicycles. We had homeless people walking through. I had to explain to my 10-year-old, or my 7-year-old at that time, what her first four-letter words were. So just the only way to keep trespassers out of there are with these fences. We tried many different, signage options, cones. There's only so many things we can do that are approved, that aren't permanent, and none of those can do anything. So the city has stated publicly that it anticipates usage of 13,500 travelers a day on their Parkway project. That's roughly 5 million users a year. Without a clear maintenance and safety plan in place at this time, this number of users would, create a massive burden on MA9 staff as well as us homeowners. For them to object to this application because they plan to complete this project at some future date is putting the cart well before the horse. This application has been awarded all necessary endorsements and meets all criteria and conforms to all standards under Title 23. Denying this application to cater to the demands of the city to grant public access to these private properties would be unjustified. Again, I ask that you affirm the board staff's recommendation and approve these fences. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final submitted comment card is another name whose pronunciation will correct me if I get it wrong. Renee Fullwider.
You got it right.
Excellent.
And
Welcome.
I'm really not comfortable doing this. I didn't want to have to do it. I am a property owner at 700 River Lake, where the second fence will go up to protect that stretch of homes along the levee there.
Ma'am, can I ask, I'm sorry, Board Counsel, can I also ask you to state your name for the record?
I'm sorry.
Would you say your name for the record, please?
Renee Fullwider.
Thank you.
So just a couple of comments. The flood control logs document that there is less damage, erosion, and destruction to the levees where they are protected by the fences and there's no public access to them. They've never had an issue with maintenance with the cross-levee fences that I know of. If they did, they probably would not have approved our request. But a really big concern of mine, as the video or as his PowerPoint showed, we own to the toe of the levee. That's private property. And without the fences, who's going to be responsible when someone gets injured on my property? I've asked that question repeatedly and no one has addressed it. And it's a liability that I personally do not want to take on and don't think I should have to. The city's not going to take it on. When you ask them, they say, oh, it'll be resolved in court. Well, I don't want that. I'm a bike rider. I wouldn't want to ride in somebody's backyard. And they get injured. I mean, there's no two ways about it. The needless things to say, they do provide safety and security for us. When the fences have been down, as they said, we've had homeowners on the levee, and they do damage to the levee. They dig in it, and they make a mess. I mean, they litter. It's just kind of out of control. I just really hope that you will recognize private property rights and that we have a right to keep trespassers off of our property and not have public use in what I consider my backyard. Thank you. I hope you will approve the permit.
Thank you. That concludes the submitted speaker cards. I'll ask, looks like there might be at least one other person here in the room who would like to speak. Please come to the microphone and state your name.
Good morning, members. My name is Robert Villanowith. I'm a property owner adjacent to the Sacramento River and levee area involved in this permit application. I want to make a comment in response to the gentleman from the city of Sacramento stating they need more time to review this application for permit regarding these fences. These fences have been up for 40 years, and there's been plenty of time to study them in regards to the bike trail project. I'm here to request the board to approve the permanent cross-levee fence permit today. I understand the city has a long-term goal of developing a levee top bike trail. I'm not here to debate the broader policy of bicycle access in Sacramento. The issue properly belongs within the city's planning environment review, right-of-way acquisition, and public access process. I believe the board's decision is narrower. That's whether the fence complies with the board's flood control and levee access. Also like to talk about the public safety component. There's a legitimate and ongoing public safety concern associated with the levee access. Without controlled access, the levee will become vulnerable to trespassing, nighttime activity, vandalism, illegal vehicle access, privacy intrusion, and conflict with adjacent property owners. I've experienced this firsthand when the fences were taken down during the construction project on the land side of the levee. I'm also a local business owner of more than 20 years. I have a business on Broadway and currently serve as a board member for the Tower District, formerly known as the Broadway Partnership. I bring that up because throughout the work I've regularly interacted with the Sacramento City Police Department. They do an outstanding job of serving our community, very grateful for them. But the reality of the situation with the police department is that they are limited. And public safety staffing remains stretched. In the Broadway corridor, supplemental private security has become necessary to address ongoing issue. That experience has given me a practical understanding of how unmanaged public access can create long-term safety challenges. I respectfully ask the board to focus on the standards within its jurisdiction. That's to control flood, public safety, levee maintenance, inspection access, and whether the fence can be conditioned to those safety, to satisfy those requirements. It's the government's obligation to promote public safety first and foremost. I respectfully ask the board to approve the permanent cross levee permit today. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments in the room?
I know. My name is Dave Williamson. I live at 671 River Lake Way. I don't live on the levee. I live across the street from it. I've been there for 34 years, and I can tell you, I know public safety is not a major concern for you, but when there's unlimited access to a levee, you have all kinds of events going on after hours that from barbecue fires to bike riders going up the levee on mountain bikes. And I can tell you, before the fences went in, I had 3 cars stolen. My neighbor had his house broken into 5 times. The city said, we have no record of crime. The answer is, we didn't call it in because we were on vacation. We weren't even in the state. And the people on the levee can look down and see when you're home and when you're not. But aside from that, I lived next to the Santa Ana River levee in Orange County for 20 years. And I can tell you the amount of activity that went on there before they started controlling it literally destroyed the levee. Horseback riders are going up and down. Mountain bikers are going up and down. It became it reached a point where flooding started into our homes. That's when I left. But if you want to maintain a levee for flood protection and control, and you have any interest in public safety, I say put the fences back. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments from within the room? It does look like we have one more, at least.
Good morning. My name is Gail Nadal, and I'm the homeowner at 725 Clipper Way. Members of the Central Valley Flood Control Board, I am one of the homeowners that has a cross-levee fence on my property. My family has lived in the home for over 50 years. For over 50 years, this legally permitted fence has stood behind my home and helped protect my family's private property from trespassers. My father, Bill Kodani, was the original owner of this at 725 Clipper Way, and he installed the stairs and fence through the original permitting process and plan of the Department of Water Resources in 1971. The river and the natural environment have been enjoyed by my family and many other homeowners. The fence has protected us from increased outside population seen on the river's levee and the potential risk that comes with it. The fence allows homeowners to maintain clean and kept yards as well. Our family plans to continue to enjoy the access to the cross levee fence and stairs. Staff recommends approval of this application. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has no objection. The Maintenance Area 9 Flood Control Authority has no objection. The fence has been found not to inhibit maintenance or flood control operations. And for my grandson, who is 2 years of age, I ask the board to approve this application as recommended by staff so that this young child can enjoy his evening walks with family and neighbors as all of my family has been able to do for the last 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there more comments within the room? Seeing none, we'll ask and see if we have comments online. Please raise your hand on whatever video tool we're using here today if you'd like to make a comment.
Yes, Patrick Henriksen.
Thank you. Board members, my name is Patrick Henriksen, and I am the counsel for the Riverside Village Improvement Association. I represent the property owners in the Little Pocket between 820 Yacht Court, where there is a permitted fence. That's for you, Mr. Countryman. So we do have that up. That's down by the Sherwood Marina. And on June 26, we already completed 408 review, 402 review, hundreds of hours of work, dealt with Casey Lund over at MA9. There are no maintenance issues in the Little Pocket whatsoever. And Casey Lund has a direct dial to me. I know exactly what his email is. If we have a maintenance issue, it's quickly addressed. We have meetings every single month as part of our board, and we have committees that deal as liaisons with all members that are necessary to come into the levee to maintain it. So for Ms. Griego, I apologize if I mispronounce your name, maintenance is not an issue in this area. In fact, just the opposite. We are clearly on it in the Little Pocket. So the city had an opportunity during the 408 review in the fall when Army Corps of Engineers gave notice that this permit was under 408 review to object, and they did not. So as far as I'm concerned, they waived any objection. Further, I see that counsel for the flood board, and by the way, I want to give a very brief shout out to Selva and Travis and Mr. Michael Wright. I know them very well. Had a meeting with Selva and Michael Wright at my office. I've gotten to know them over hundreds of hours of work, and they are a tremendous asset to the flood board. Appreciate all of their hard work. Anyway, the council for your flood board today stated that there will be a condition, 30-day removal. All we're seeking right now in the little pocket and the big pocket is simply to take the temporary fences and put footings on them for safety purposes so they don't blow over. So if down the road we have eminent domain, if that ever happens, and they get through 408 and 402 review with the Army Corps of Engineers, which is going to take years, I can guarantee you that, at that point in time, we're more than happy if they legally obtain the property to take the fences down. But that doesn't help us now. This is a ministerial act by the board members to simply approve this permanent gate and fence for the big pocket and the one coming up on June 26th for the little pocket. And that's all I have to say today. And I really appreciate everything all of you have done in our valley to make sure that we have flood control. And we welcome that. And we most certainly worked with Army Corps, Chase and Seneca to get all of our docks out. We worked with Selva to make sure that all of our stairs were out, SAFCA, and it's quite a nightmare. So for those that are out there protesting, you have no idea what this has put us through. We simply want to quietly enjoy our properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments online?
Richard Markuson.
Morning, Secretary Johnson and members. My name is Richard Markuson, and I've lived adjacent to the levee system in this area for over 40 years, and I'm here today to respectfully oppose the approval of this new fence encroachment across the levee in the pocket area. The Central Valley Flood Protection Board's core mission, as stated on your website, is to protect the public and reduce flood risk, not, in my opinion, to facilitate the privatization of public levee access by a handful of adjoining property owners. For decades, the city of Sacramento has worked towards completion of the Sacramento River Parkway, a continuous public bike and pedestrian path along the Sacramento River. The missing link is this 2-mile stretch through the pocket neighborhoods, where some homeowners have asserted what amounts to private control over public levee space by erecting fences and barriers across the levee crown. Importantly, these fences were removed during the levee repair work with what I understand to be the understanding that once repairs were complete, the city would proceed to complete the parkway. Instead, the board has gradually allowed supposedly temporary encroachments to return, and today appears prepared to authorize permanent new construction that further obstructs public passage and undermines a long-planned public project. Approving this fence tips the scales decisively in the favor of the number of adjacent property owners at the expense of broader public interest. It will make the completion of the parkway more difficult, more delayed, and more expensive. And every additional permanent encroachment creates another precedent and another obstacle to ever achieving a continuous public trail. I would point out that the Corps' caveat in their LOP was that the construction not be injurious to public interest. And I would submit that prohibiting public access to the levee is indeed injurious to public interest. The levee is not a private backyard extension. It is part of a critical public infrastructure built, maintained, and repaired for the benefit of the entire community. The public has invested hundreds of millions of dollars into these levees and into the vision of a connected river parkway. I respectfully ask the board not to approve the permanent fence. Furthermore, to direct staff not to renew any temporary permits going forward, as doing so would permanently compromise the public vision. At a minimum, the board should defer action until the city of Sacramento's long-planned parkway alignment and public access objectives are fully resolved. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Other comments online?
No more comments online.
That concludes the public comment part of this meeting, and I'll turn back to board staff for any response or reply, and then we'll come back to the board for discussion.
Thank you, Secretary Johnson. No further comments at this time. However, I will be able to provide you with a map of the existing fences and gates that are out there. My name is Travis Comstock, board staff. Thank you.
Maybe we can show it now. Do you have it as part of the backup?
I do not. The backup slide only shows downstream gates, and those are only proposed, not existing.
Sorry, didn't it show all the current temporary fence locations?
Selva Mohan, board staff. If you can bring up the slides real quick. Thank you. So this is the big pocket cross-levy fences existing right now. These are numbered in no particular order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 temporary cross-levy fences exist. The project fence, today's discussion is labeled as number 5 at the very top of the big pocket area. And there are temporary cross-levy fences at these locations labeled 1 through 5. All these 5 locations, permanent cross-levy fences existed before the Army Corps project, and they were removed for the federal project, and then the applications are now in various stages to construct permanent cross-levy fences. And there are fences in the little pocket area too, that's also in the process. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Microphone. Board Member Grego and then Board Member Bosler both have hands up, and we can ask questions of our staff first and then bring it back to discussion if that's what you have in mind.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something. Those are all temporary fences at this time? And you're nodding yes. Okay, thank you.
Board Member Bosler.
Yeah, I have just a legal question. There's a condition of the permit that it's the responsibility of the landowner to remove the fence, but I also would like to understand how that would interact with an eminent domain proceeding.
Board Counsel Dua, just to make sure that I understand your question.
Well, I mean, I think we heard in the public comment that under eminent domain, and this is my understanding, however, I'm not a lawyer, is that there is like fair reimbursement of the assets, and so this would improve the asset. It would create this permanent structure on the asset. So my question is like, does that increase the fair market value in an eminent domain proceeding? And how does that interact with our permit condition?
Well, our permit condition, and thank you for the clarification, Board Member Bosler. It potentially, the encroachments would potentially increase the value of the property. But all of our permits typically require the permittee to remove those encroachments if required by the board. And we specifically, with anticipation of this, sorry, I couldn't speak, of this project coming forward, and again, we don't know when, that the property owners would be required to remove those once there's a change in property rights, once those are determined, which those encroachments that are affected by the amount of property, and as I understand, the city is not seeking fee title, they're seeking an easement. So wherever their easement is, whatever encroachments are affected by that easement, those would have to be removed.
Thank you. Does that help? Board Member Bosler? Yeah, nodding her head.
Yes, and that,
Yes,
I could
thank
just
you.
clarify, and that was special condition 15 in the draft permit.
Thank you. I have a question. Board Member Craig, I can go first.
Thank you. So I want to ask a question from the City of Sacramento representatives here. So in your plans for this parkway, access, one of the things that was brought up about nighttime, and I don't see lights out there. I don't think it's safe for people to be on those levees at nighttime, whether they're riding their bikes or motor vehicles or whatever. What are some of the parameters of when they can be on that particular area? Have you thought that through? Is that something that's been evaluated? Your microphone, please, and state your name.
Yeah, good morning again. This is Jesse Gothen, City of Sacramento Public Works. So our bike trails typically follow the same rules as our parks, sunrise to sunset. I've heard this referred to as a recreational trail, which it certainly will be, but it's also a transportation corridor for active transportation. And so cyclists with headlamps are still permitted to use our facilities in the evening.
So you're saying at nighttime they could still be on that trail?
As I understand, yeah.
Is that something that the city council would reconsider? I mean, I understand people's
And
concern.
I would also defer to our safety plan, which is online. And so I don't have exactly what we're saying to that point, but it's certainly something we can get back to you on.
So one of the other things that was brought up is about liability. So when you take over this particular area through an easement, do you also assume all liability on that area?
Well, for the easement, we would.
Yeah.
That's what the city is looking at taking. We're not looking to take the entire property. So the property owners still are going to have their property.
Right. And what's the I guess this plan has been in place for a time being now. And I remember when I went out there, that was something that was told to us as well. When we went out before the new levees were redone. When do you anticipate? I heard that end of the year you're going to be going into acquisition, or?
So right now, my understanding is we're supposed to be getting NEPA clearance from Caltrans, hopefully within the next week or so. And then at that point, the city will start to move forward with property acquisition. So that is the plan, that we will start putting together the appraisals, put together the offer packages, and start moving forward with property acquisition, hopefully by the end of the year.
I see. Okay, thank you. And I guess for the board, I just want to say that, I understand all of the arguments that has been made here today in regards to the property owners. I still maintain that there is a need for having some controls over there in regards to making sure maintenance is not a problem in that area. And I was wondering, would the board consider maybe putting fences up between Garcia Bend and the other area that was on the map, but I can't remember the name of it, Zacharias Park, and just putting that up until the city of Sacramento decides that they're going to, go through that process. I mean, they're going to put up 5 fences, 5 gates, 5 locks, and why not just put 2 up and see if that would help with deter some of the problems that the landowners are having out there. Just a thought. I just want to throw it out there.
Thank you, Board Member Carrego. I think that's something that you're asking the staff to take into consideration for future discussions. Okay, thank you. Board Member Countryman has his light on, but Board Counsel Jeet Dua, I think may have had a comment on the last one, and if that's the last exchange, and if that's right, I'll take you now to preserve the flow.
I had no further comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
I saw the light come on up. Yeah. Board Member Countryman.
I just want to ask, because I think the crux of this is I haven't really heard from the city of Sacramento any concern about these fences as far as flood protection goes. your comments have to do with a future recreation project. Am I correct there?
Well, my understanding is these fences serve no functional purpose for flood protection, flood control, or maintenance. Is that we're back to this has obviously been in the process for several years, and the city just found out about this 2 weeks ago, and there was some conditions that were just put up on that slide, which we haven't had any chance to review. We haven't had any chance to consider what the impacts are going to be. So
as far as now goes, because we're going to vote here shortly, you're not presenting any concern about impact of flood control.
I don't know if that's really our area to opine on. Right.
Just,
right.
I'm not critical.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify it. So.
Okay. Yeah. As I wanted to understand your question, but yeah, I mean, the flood control, obviously, the board, that's your area.
Right. Okay.
Not
Thank
the
you.
cities.
I didn't see which hand online came up first. Whoever put their hand up first, take your hand down and come off mute. Board Member Bosler?
I think it was Betty that had her hand up first.
Board Member Andrews?
Thank you very much, Secretary Johnson. I am understanding of all of the forces at play here, and it just goes to show that when you have a levee in a highly populated area, there are a lot of interests that intersect at the levee. I wanted to ask a question of our staff, given the fact that this trail plan, as I understand it, has been under discussion for quite a while, and we've gone through this process of already removing fences and having temporary fences. Was staff aware of the potential city interest? Was there? I'm just surprised that the city is telling us that they only had 2 weeks to respond to this, and that we only got their letter literally in the minutes before the beginning of this meeting today. I want to understand from our staff if there's an opportunity there to change things such that that same process is not repeated, since it sounds like there's going to be a number of these applications coming before us in the future.
Thank you. Selva Solomohan, board staff. Staff is aware of the city's proposed bike trail project, and we have been in coordination with the city of Sac since April of 2021. And we even had them present bike trail project presentation to this board on May 26, 2023. And then following that they we have been sharing information back and forth. And then when this particular cross levee fence project letter of permission came to the board staff, we started preparing the board package, and the board staff report was shared with the city, and the special conditions was shared with the city after it was finalized. And then these cross levee fences, the temporary ones, existed for last 3 years, and the previous permanent ones existed for decades. So these fences are there. So just wanted to note that. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I hear you assert that the board staff had been in communication with the city about this application longer ago than 2 weeks ago?
This particular application project, we received the letter of permission April 28, and then only we started preparing the staff report. And once the staff report became finalized, we did share it with the city. And then that's how we came to know about their protest. And then following the receipt of the protest, we had our internal meeting with councils, and then we developed those special conditions in response to the city's protest.
Okay, so the staff report was shared with the city approximately 2 weeks ago?
That's about right.
Okay. Well, I think we're all on notice that this is going to be an area of concern with the city, and I hope we can stay in closer contact about things as we move forward. I'd like to address the representatives of the city about the statement in closing of their letter, which asserts that allowing construction of a cross-levee barrier would jeopardize completion of the project, the shared use trail project, and understand better the basis for that assertion.
Thank you, Board Member Andrews. I think the question is in light of the special permit terms, the basis for that statement, right?
Yeah, as I said, it's very difficult for me to.
Could you say your name for the record, please?
Oh, sorry. Mike Fry with the City of Sacramento. We as a city, looking at some of those conditions only just a few days ago, had some of the very same points that you raised as far as what does a property interest mean and how is that going to impact that particular permit. I mean, with the property interest, it doesn't say anything about eminent domain. The city has a pump facility right next to this property. If the city was to, do, as I said, something with regards to that, as far as needing to obtain a wider easement, would that impact it? We really don't know. But as far as jeopardizing the city's project, you pointed out, this would, if it's approved, the fence is going to go in, it's going to increase the property value. The city is then going to have to go through the process of asking to have that removed. It's going to take more time than what's there for just a temporary fence. So yes, it could impact. Again, these are things that, long-term, all the issues that might come up with it, I can't say for sure, but it's going to definitely impact the project.
May I ask you to confirm the delay that you requested? Was it 90 days? Is that memory serving me right?
We would, as I said, we would request 90 days. As I said, that would give the city time internally to discuss with other departments what the impacts could be. As I said, we haven't even discussed, since it's going to be local law enforcement and local fire department, if there's a fire or if there's an emergency situation, we need to, again, confirm with them as far as would they be able to get access. Is 14 feet going to be wide enough for a fire rig to get through? These are things I don't know, and maybe they might not be an impact, but they're things that we as a city need to address and explore, or like to, before the permit's voted on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Board Member Bosler? Questions for our
Yeah,
staff?
my concerns are very similar to Board Member Andrews. I feel like one of the things that we've been really working very hard at the board is to zoom out and see the big picture and to understand, our statutory roles very clearly, but like in the context of the public good. And I do think that, there's just a lot of concerns that I have about the lack of communication and coordination. Even though we've known about the city's project since at least 2021, it sounds like, and we were presented around the project in 2023. And so I know that there are timing issues. I know that there are very clear legal issues. And I guess my frustration right now is really about the coordination and the lack of thereof, from my perspective, about some long-term public trust issues. And I just would rather be working towards common good here. And I know there's controversy around this project. I've lived near another similarly situated project in Sacramento. I know there are lots of people on both sides of this issue. And ultimately, that's going to be worked out in other jurisdictions, not before us. But I think, this feels a little bit like maybe using our process to make it more difficult. And I don't know that I see that, as useful. So, I wish that there would have been more coordination with the city. I guess I just will leave it there.
Thank you. Along those lines, I have one final question for staff, and then we'll check to see if there are other questions, and then we'll bring it back to the board for discussion. This relates to the request, the amended request from the city, to deny or put this off for 90 days, and I'm wondering if staff have a reaction to that second request, or would like to modify your staff recommendation or speak to the pros and cons of taking that time.
Selva Mohan, board staff. I don't see any pros, cons, putting this 90 days, but I'm sure the homeowners and the applicant, will not be happy, with that decision. Like I said, this particular project is like an encroachment application for us. We make sure it complies with Title 23 regulations. We make sure with the fence, the levee can be maintained through endorsement by the Maintenance Area 9. And then we work with the Army Corps of Engineers Section 408 to make sure their authorization is valid. And so we make sure every code, every code of regulation is met. And then here we are, for a decision.
Thank you. See if we have any other questions from the board, and if not, we can turn to board discussion and a possible. Board Counsel Jeet Dua.
Thank you, Board Member Johnson. Just wanted to take a quick opportunity before the board brings us back for discussion and vote to respond to the city's question about not understanding special condition 15 and what a change in property rights means. We specifically drafted that to try to balance the homeowner's private property rights with the understanding that there is an anticipated recreational trail that's going to be coming in the future. And a change in property rights would either be an easement or a change in ownership of the actual property. We usually have a condition in our permits that whenever there's a change in ownership of a property, and you've heard today earlier about in the enforcement action that the permitted features were under the prior owner, and so that's also a violation. So we have conditions that a new property owner has to essentially get the permit under their name. So when there's a change in property ownership or rights, that's also contemplated by that condition. So depending again on how much land is taken and when that happens, I think that will be determined which of these encroachments are affected, and those will have to be removed. And we also anticipated the fact that it could increase the value and it would cost more for the city to take that out, and that's why there's a condition in the permit that the permittee has to remove those encroachments.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to bring it back to the board for discussion and possible motion. Who wants to start? Board Member Grego.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to, something I might have forgotten to mention, but when I went out there before the actual reconstruction of the levees was done, one of the complaints from the maintenance area was that because there were so many gates and fences up, that each gate had its own lock. And so having different locks for each of those gates, and then maybe they shared those keys with the maintenance people, but then they turn around and change them again. So this was part of the reason why maintenance was such an issue during that time when there was different locks, different gates, and then the changing of those locks, and then wasn't passed on to the maintenance area. So it really created an issue of being able to perform out there. That's why I recommended that maybe we should look at just putting 2 gates in between those areas, and that we maintain those locks. And so I wanted to make sure I got that out. The other thing too is that this board just recently took a tour around the ring levee around Marysville. And there you see lots of examples of houses that are built up against the levees. I mean, this is not an unusual situation. I mean, there are all over the Central Valley, there are houses that bump right up against the levees. And so none of it's perfect. It is a law enforcement issue when it comes to vandalism. So I just want you to consider that there are these situations all over, and what this board does today kind of impacts what happens in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Countryman.
Just some little short response here to the maintenance area. Maintenance area did not object to this project. So apparently the keys aren't a significant issue for them. My concern here is that our authority is over flood control. And I know in the past we've have not accepted testimony about other uses of the levee, such as recreation and so forth, because that was not our purview. What we're here to do is determine, is this permit possibly have a negative impact on flood control? And according to our staff, the Corps of Engineers, and the maintenance area, there's no impact. So I feel like we have some obligation to approve this permit.
Board Counsel Jeet Dua.
Thank you, Board Member Johnson. Just to affirm or confirm Board Member Countryman's understanding, our regs require protests to be flood control related. And so I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. Back to Board Member Grego. And I cannot see the 2 board members online, so if you raise your hand, though, Jonah will let me know.
I never disagree with Joe Countryman. I always agree with him, and I think we're going to be at this point where we're going to have to arm wrestle or a foot race, one of the 2, but put your money on me. And, you know, I don't think that, you know, I'm looking at denying this request. I'm looking at maybe giving the 90 days that the city has requested, you know, before we take action, and giving them the opportunity to digest what was said here and to send that back to their city council for review and look at the terms that this permit has. I mean, if I was a homeowner there and I was told that I get to put a fence and a gate and make the investment of stairs and railings and all this other stuff, but then if the city comes in and, you know, with a plan and the money and the ability to do eminent domain, but I'm responsible for removing all that stuff, I'm not sure I would want to do that. You know, I don't know if I'd want to make that investment. And so giving a little time for the city to review this and to listen to what the public had to say about this. It's not denying the permit, it's just allowing some communication to occur before we take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I can see our 2 board members online. Come off mute or raise your hand if either of you would like to continue this discussion.
This is, if I may speak.
Yes, Board Member Andrews.
Board Member Andrews here, yes. I was interested in the point made about the number of cross-levee fences that are there temporarily and presumably may become permanent cross-levee fences if other applicants are successful. And I realize, may not even be all of the fences that historically existed here. And this is more philosophical, not specific to this application, but it does seem to me that every fence poses some degree of impediment to maintenance and flood response, and that it might be a useful part of our time to think about, is it appropriate to have some guidelines about the number of fences that would make sense to allow in a given area. This is much broader than this particular permit application, but I do think it's a pertinent question, and I'd like staff to respond to that at some later time after giving it some thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion if you're ready.
Board Member Countryman.
I move to adopt the staff recommendation to basically allow the permit.
We have a motion. We'll see if there's a second.
I would make a substitute motion.
I'd have to check under the rules exactly how that works, but
Okay.
I'm going to start informally and just ask Board Member Countryman if.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Go ahead, Board Member Bosler.
I would move to put this measure over for 90 days and bring it back. So no affirming or denying today. The staff report stands the way it is, no changes to that, but to provide additional time to review some additional aspects of the conditions around this permit. So that would be the motion I would put forward.
I'll go ahead and second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we'll ask if Board Member Countryman or Board Member Andrews would like to debate the motion.
I would. Since 2012, I've been intimately involved with the city of Sacramento and the plan to put a bike trail down this levee. We've been to public meetings. They've been here making presentations. There's absolutely no reason they need 90 days to make comments on this. 30 days should be more than sufficient. I see no justification for the 90-day period.
I'm happy to modify my motion and provide 30 days instead of the 90.
I could support that.
I would, if you're modifying the second, we'll agree to that.
Okay. I'm not going to go to my Roberts Rules book and see exactly the procedure, because I think everybody agrees that Board Member Bosler's motion is for 30-day continuance. Is there further debate on this motion? We'll call for a vote.
Member Andrews?
Aye.
Member Bosler?
Aye.
Member Countryman?
Yes.
Member Griego?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson?
Aye. So I want to check to make sure we get the transcript and the motion correct. And as I understand it, it's straight up 30-day continuance. Okay. Thank you. All right. So that completes our two action items. And if it's okay with everybody, I'm going to power through here and not take more breaks. We have staff report, written report from the Department of Water Resources that is in everybody's packet. And I'll stop to see if board members have any comments or questions about that, and then I'll briefly ask for public comment as well. Board Member Countryman.
I have under staff activity reports a request for further information on the Folsom Dam Raise project that was raised in there. I had a recent meeting with the Corps of Engineers, and I heard, I might be wrong, but I heard that the gates on Folsom Dam are not funded and they're going to cease work on it and essentially disband their office out there without completing that project. That's a problem for me because the 3-foot dam raise is only effective if you change the gates. So we've raised all the we're in the process of raising all the embankments, or have already raised the embankments, but we don't build the gates that would use the dam raise. So I want more information about what the status of that is.
I'll check to see if any of our staff have anything to offer now, but also take under advisement that Board Member Countryman's request, and that caught my attention also, and I want to make sure that we understand fully what's going on and can do what we need to as a board to make this right.
Selva Mohan, board staff. Board Member Countryman is correct that Dike 7, for example, the design is complete, but the project will not be awarded, due to funding constraints, and other elements of the project is also impacted by the funding constraint. And I have Corey Lasso, the program manager from the Department of Water Resources, to provide further information on this particular topic. He's online available.
Go ahead.
Good morning, this is Corey Lasso. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So Corey Lasso, work at DWR in the flood projects branch as a supervising engineer. Thanks, Joe, for the question, board member Countryman for the question, appreciate it. So as you know, the project's been going on for quite some time, construction beginning back in about 2021. So as you know, many of the projects that we have, funding for the projects don't come all at once. These projects are multi-year projects, and so we get funding in increments. And obviously, different times in the country, different funding streams come different ways. Some fundings come through, for example, BBA 2018 funding, ARCF funding. ARCF, American River Common Features 2016, got funded all in one go. That's not the typical norm. Most of the projects, like American River Common Feature Natomas, it's funded in increments. Part of the project is funded, and we actually do federal advocacy to get funding through each year as projects happen. So the Folsom Dam Raise, while it does have a risk of not getting funding, I'll say the non-federal sponsors as well as the Army Corps are pushing and working to get that funding. So I support your concern, and definitely if funding didn't come, that would be the scenario that it wouldn't get to be completed. As you know, we have dikes. If I could pull up a map, I would. But dikes 1 through 8, all those projects, things are going on for the next year. We have things moving forward. Gate 8 on the main dam is what we're calling the proof of concept for the other gates 1 through 7 is in process, and that will be completed. So the funding shortage would be for those gates 1 through 7 to be completed. We're hopeful that I'll say that the federal government is going to see the importance and the need to complete this project, but appreciate it being brought to light out here in the public to discuss that. Over.
Thanks, Corey. was there something with the construction of Gate 8 that was going to be done, and so they'd learn what the construction issues were with it, and they could modify the contract for the other 7 gates to optimize that work? Did they find something that really was raising the cost beyond what they thought, or had problems that we didn't hear about? What do you know about that?
Without going into I'll say the big details, because I'm not the expert at it in the details, but there has definitely been challenges related to how everything gets stabilized, from the trunnions, the bulkhead gates, the raising. There's definitely been increased cost related to how that would get implemented. And then from that proof of concept, which has actually gone up in cost as well, that would get translated out into gates 1 through 7. So those costs have gone up to be able to meet and provide. It's like anything, if you're retrofitting an existing structure, there's a lot of unknowns that can come up and happen. And that's essentially what's driving this and increasing cost, as well as delay as time. Concrete costs have increased. A lot of costs have increased over the last couple of years as well. So I think all those factors combined start to increase the cost on that. And if we want, I'll say detailed specifics, we could definitely get some of the members from the Army Corps in to talk about that. I know we gave a general briefing earlier this year on the dam raise itself, but if that's desired, that's something we could do either in this public forum or with, on the side with some of the members of the board. Over.
Okay, thank you, Corey. It's just very concerning to me that we've spent, I don't know how much money we've already spent out there. It's a lot, though. And it's wasted if you don't put those gates in. It doesn't make any sense. So I hope that we can encourage the Corps to fund this.
Agreed. And it's not that the Corps doesn't want to do it. It's the full federal government, and it's part of the challenges and I'll say the priorities of where funding is going. And so we are, I'm with you completely. We go in and do all these dikes, raise the dikes. And if we aren't able to get the main dam, the whole project doesn't serve the purpose. So I'm quite hopeful that I'll say that sounder minds will win the day, but we need to keep, I'll say, pushing that forward, providing advocacy of that information, getting that into Congress people's inboxes and keeping them informed of that, so that we make sure that we get the funding that's needed, so that we can provide what this project is the federal government has already determined to do. So I'm hopeful that that's going to prevail, and we'll do everything in our power to make that so.
Thank you. Brian Johnson here again. That explanation is helpful, and I want to thank Board Member Countryman for speaking up and laying some common sense on here. And I also, if there, for all of the staff members at the board or DWR who may still be listening, and your leadership is thinking about how to press forward on the issue and make sure this does get solved the right way, and you need a spokesperson for that, I nominate Joe Countryman.
I volunteer to help.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Board Member Countryman. We've utilized you in the past, and super appreciate all the support and help you've given us on some of the core projects.
Just a little sidelight. Right now, the Corps is in the process of revising its flood control manual and the operating instructions for Folsom Dam that include those 8 gates being in place. So it's, it's like the left hand and the right hand don't know what they're doing at the federal government.
I know it's surprising. Yeah, thank you. Other comments or questions on the DWR report? Our next item is the staff activity reports, and as always, we have those reports and appreciate them. And take an opportunity if we have board members who'd like to comment or ask questions about those. Okay, agenda item number 12 here, board comments and committee updates. Do we have any? We have unanimous sentiment among the board that their comment is going to lunch. Last item to speak of here is our upcoming meetings. We have coordinating committee May 26th. The board workshop is not happening, is that correct? The agenda lists a board workshop on June 12, and that is not happening. We have an advisory committee meeting June 23, and our next board meeting here at CNRA on June 26th. We do not have a closed session. We do not have a closed session report, and we will adjourn at 11:55.